prepared by Ben. So let's head inside and see what he's cooking up.
Good morning, I am Ben Chuck and this is Ben's Chuck Wagon. I've been cooking since I was 7 years old when I started cooking at home. And then our kitchen here is located where the house was that I grew up in. So the kitchen that I first learned how to start cooking in is, well, you can't see it, but kind of off to my left would have been where it was in the house I grew up in. That where the kitchen is now. But I learned how to cook a lot from my grandmothers and as well as my nanny who took care of us when we were little. And I started baking and stuff at home, and my family, we couldn't eat all of it, so my parents started giving away, and then people wanted to start buying it. So when I was in high school, I started selling some of the pastries and baked items that I made. And as time went on, then when I graduated high school and started going to coloring school, my parents got me involved in selling barbecue at fairs and events as such. And then I've always wanted to have a restaurant, but in lieu of that, people started asking me to make food for birthday parties or different things they were having. So I started doing that, and then that led into a line of work of doing catering and catering for all occasions. So after about 4 years, quit doing any of that and went into mostly doing catering. And this year, we've been doing this for now 20 years. Our cooking is Southern American comfort food that is made. I make everything that I started my business, and I said if I wouldn't want to make or eat it myself, why would I want to make it for someone else? So everything is pretty much made from scratch or made from fresh products. Ben's Chuck Wagon is a catering for all occasions business, and we do catering for all occasions such as weddings, anniversaries, school events, fundraisers, festivals, and as well as the county events like most of y'all know me from.
And what products and services do you offer?
We offer a wide range of menu options of Southern home-style cooking, which we're quite well known for barbecue, chicken fried steak, chicken fried chicken, and then through the holiday season, our turkey and dressing, and other items that we do, and as well as we customize and adapt right menus to adapt to our customers' needs. Saying we're kind of a very family-owned and family-oriented business. My parents, they still help out quite a bit, but they're not full-time employees. But we've had employees that worked here for over 15 years, and then over the years, their kids sometimes worked here through the time they were in school, and then we had some younger people that worked here, and we still keep in contact with them after they went on to college and then started their own careers. And then we had some people, their mother has worked here and then their daughter. And so we like to keep it very small and unique in that manner. The future for Ben's Chuck Wagon, I think we will continue to do what we've been doing. And we'll see how it progresses, but every day is a new day, and you know, we never know what door is going to open down the road that will lead us into a new thing. But hopefully, you know, one day I'll be able to pass the torch on to somebody else. Okay, well, let's take a tour of Ben's Chuck Wagon. We'll go through the kitchen and our workstations as well. So, when you come in through the break room, we have a beverage area where we make get all our drinks ready, like our iced tea, our coolers of ice. And storage here, we store all the pots, or all the pans that we package food in to go out for catering and for delivery. And then we have a hot holding warmer here for pickup orders as well. And this is where the food goes out then for to the loading dock to be loaded into the catering vans to go out for delivery. We do all off-site catering, so everything is taken out onto delivery or to drop-offs, etc. Area where we prep vegetables. We have a vegetable prep sink here, a potato peeler. We do most of all our prepping of vegetables and food, etc. here. And then there's a walk-in cooler, so the employees can take things from in and out, back and forth as well. And then there's a freezer next to that. We're still in the prep area, but here we have the orders for the weeks that we post here that go out And today is Monday, so we haven't posted for the week's work orders that the employees will prep and work from each week. Where most of all our dry good storage is located in here. On this side here, we have our baking line, which we have 6 convection ovens and then a double-decker convection steamer oven on the end. We pretty much do all our baking of our homemade breads or pastries here, as well as breakfast. And as you can see here, we have bread rising for tomorrow already. Cooking line along here. We have a couple of large steam kettles, and actually today in here we're making barbecue sauce, a big batch of our barbecue sauce for tomorrow in this kettle. We also then have 2 6-burner stoves in this area, and then we have our grill and fryers down here. Okay, I already have all the dough, everything made, so we're just going to go through the steps of rolling it out. This is the apple strudel dough, which we've already mixed and made and refrigerated, so it's cold, so it's easier to work it with. So it's pretty sticky and tacky when you start, so you can use a lot of flour because this is not a rising dough, so it will not get too hard. And don't be afraid to use quite a bit of flour on it. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to roll it out. And you're going to roll it out pretty paper thin. And it takes a little pressure to get going with it. But as you can see, it will start to work out quite well. And as you can see, I'm using a lot of flour to keep it from sticking because it is a stickier dough. And what you're going to do is you're going to roll it out in kind of a triangle, longer, not as wide, because then what we'll do is we'll fill it. And as you can see, I'm working the dough quite a bit, and you have to get the hang of it. And it's kind of a funny story of making apple strudels and rolling these out. When I made my first one by myself years ago, it really didn't turn out that well. So don't be afraid when you see how we do it that you end up with holes in it and whatnot, because it is very possible that happens. Because the very first one I ever made, when I tried picking it up and moving it to the pan, it busted open and there was apples and everything everywhere. And then when my parents came home, they asked, well, where's the apple strudel you made today? And I threw it out. And then my mother was like, why? And I'm like, it was a disaster, let's just say. So after you roll the dough and you want it about in this shape, you're going to want to put just a little melted butter, is what I have in this pot here, and just brush it lightly, and it'll just give it to the dough. The dough has a lot of butter already in it, but it just makes the dough a little more. And then the first layer, we're going to layer things in there. And so the first layer, we're going to do a little sugar and flour mixture that is in with a little butter and a little vanilla. And so you'll put that down. And this just kind of helps give it a little more flavor as well as absorb some of the juice from the apples then later in the cooking process. Then everyone has their own thing, what they like to put. I've heard of people using cornflakes, whatnot. We also put a little crushed vanilla wafers in there as well. Then over here, then I have the apples. They already are peeled. They're cut in small pieces as well. And then I have some brown sugar and some cinnamon on the apples. And so then we'll put a layer of apples in here. And you don't want to put too many because this is going to roll up, but you don't want to put too little because it will be skimpy as well. So you want to kind of put a layer like so in there. And And then you can do it individually. I find it easier because I make large quantities. I just mix the pecans, the coconuts, and raisins all together, and then you can just sprinkle them in. And same thing, you don't want to do too many, but you don't want to do too little, neither. And some people don't like coconuts or don't like raisins or pecans. You can opt out of putting any of those, or if you don't have them, it's not going to hurt. It just all gives it its own flavor. Then, once we do that, we're going to put a few more cookies on there. And then we're going to add a little bit more of the sugar and flour mixture. And then, before we roll it up, I'm going to take a little bit of the liquid, the melted butter, and I'll add a little bit more just for flavoring. I mean, you can't ever go wrong with butter. Not that we should be eating it, but it is good. So then now it will be time to roll it. So what you want to do is you want to take the edges and pull the edges in, like so. And now you have this. And a technique, you'll have to learn your own techniques, but things I've learned over the years is kind of pull the edges in a little bit like so. And then this butter with the dough will work kind of like a little bit of a glue to help it stick together when you roll it together. So just brush the edges with a little bit. And then now it'll be time to roll it. And you have to grab the first end, and I usually do it rolling it towards me. And you're just gonna roll, roll, roll. Then when you have it like this, you'll have the little edge on the side, which you'll put a little more butter, pull the little tab, and then now comes the tricky part. I've seen people do it in several different ways. And Randy, I'll let you, if you'd like to hold this so everyone can see how we'll do this. This is of a baking tray, and I usually bake 3 of them on there at a time, but if you're making 1 at home, well, you can just do 1. And everyone has their own thing. Some of you have used spatulas, whatnot. I've learned where I just kind of grab it and roll it under. Then the part where we folded the tab will go to the bottom, and once it's on the pan, you kind of shake it, and the dough is flexible and pliable. And there you have it. But then before you're going to bake it, I bake on parchment paper. If you were baking it on a non-parchment paper lined pan, you would want to grease it before you put it on there, or use a non-stick. But I like to use parchment paper for that. And then before you put it in the oven, you'll brush it with a little bit of butter again, more butter, like so. And then you'll put it in the oven and you'll bake it at 350 for about 30 minutes. Here we have, and we'll put them in the oven, and you bake them at about 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. And it depends on your cooking in the oven, it varies, but you kind of want them to brown, but you don't want them to over brown, but yet you do want to cook the inside. So we'll put them here, and we have a convection oven, which I had it set at 350 degrees. So Randy, you want to go ahead and put the tray in? And then we'll close it up and let them go, and we'll set the timer for about 30 minutes. Now it's been around 30 minutes, and as you can see, the strudels have kind of browned a little bit in there, so they're ready to come out. it's always best to brush them with a little bit of canned milk or condensed milk. It kind of softens the dough a little bit. And then as you brush them, you can sprinkle them with some sugar, but I like to use a little shaker with sugar in it. And then when you brush them with the milk after they're cool, it gives them a nice shine to it. Not a lot, just enough to brush it so that it's not so much of a dry crust. And then you'll let them cool. And then after they cool, they'll be ready to slice. If you're not eating them today, just put them on a tray, or you can leave them on the pan and just wrap them. Also, some people also freeze them and then take them out and eat them later if you make several of them. Because besides using apples, people can also, during times of the year when they have lots of fresh pears from their trees, they also will make them with pears as well. And you don't really notice much difference in the taste, but it's just pear in there instead of apples. Maybe you know, this is Shane. Y'all may have seen her at some of the events. She goes out to make a lot of the deliveries. And she's making us for lunch today fried chicken. So she's battered the chicken and now she's putting it to fry.
How to make kolaches.
Yeah, so this is a recipe that was my great grandmother's, and over the years it's evolved and I adapted it and made a large quantity recipe for kolaches. So first, as you know, it's a yeast product, so we have to activate the yeast. So we'll put the sugar, and we'll put the yeast, and then we'll put the warm water to dissolve the yeast. And you'll mix it to dissolve the sugar and the yeast, and then you let it sit for just a little bit to know that the yeast was activated. It will start foaming in a little bit. And in our mixing bowl, there are several ways you can knead dough, but since we're doing large quantities, we do it in the mixer and we knead it. But you can also, most people maybe know to knead dough by hand, but if you don't have a large quantity mixer, you can use your KitchenAid at home as well. In this bowl, I have the flour weighed out, and then also there's a little bit of vanilla pudding, dried vanilla pudding mix that goes in here. And then from that point, we'll go ahead, we'll add some sour cream. We will add some eggs. And these eggs have already been beaten. Actually, these are liquid eggs, but you can use whole eggs and just beat them to that. And then we have shortening, which would be Crisco, but it is melted already. And you can melt it in the microwave on the stove. Microwave is the easiest and the fastest, but you don't want it too hot, you just want it melted, because it would either cook the eggs or also kill the yeast if it was too hot. Our yeast has set here for a little bit, and as you can tell, it is starting to foam. So that is good yeast, and it has been activated already. So we'll add that to the dough as well. And sometimes when you mix the sugar in that, the sugar isn't 100% dissolved, but that is okay because you can add it to the here and it will finish. Once we have all our ingredients in there, so we have the yeast, the water, the sugar, which we dissolved together. We had the flour and the vanilla we put in first. We added the sour cream and the shortening and the eggs. Once you get all this in, you'll put it to the mixer. So now the dough has been mixing for about 30 minutes. And so now we're going to check to see if it needs to mix any longer. And the way we'll do this, you want to check the dough for the elasticity. So it's kind of like a rubber band, so it's pretty pulley. And it's a little sticky, but I think it'll be okay. We don't need to add no more flour. So you can take it out of the mixing bowl if you need to use it for something else. But we'll just leave it in the mixing bowl. We'll let it rise. Then we'll knead it back down by turning on the mixer later, and then we'll go ahead and we'll form the kolaches. Okay, now we've let the dough sit and rise. Probably about 45 minutes to an hour or so. It's risen the first time. So I left it in the mixer bowl. If you took it out of the bowl, you can knead it back down by hand. But we will go ahead and we'll turn the mixer on and we'll knead it back down just for a few minutes. Out of the bowl, and you want to flour your work surface a little bit so the dough doesn't stick, and then we'll get the dough out of the bowl. You don't ever want to put too much flour, because the funny story is when I was a kid and I would make kolaches with my nanny's mother would be making them, and her name was Lillian, who took care of us when we were little, and then her mother also was there, and she would make kolaches, and she would knead the dough by hand. And when I was a kid, I wanted to knead the dough with her. So now remember, she was probably like in her 70s, so I would want to sit on her lap and hold the spoon and go like this with her. And then when I wanted to make kolaches, so they would give me some dough and I would make kolaches of my own. And I would put so much flour in them, when they came out, they were like rocks. And so they were like rocks or bricks, and then I refused to eat them because there was really no way. But it takes a while to get the hang of making kolaches. It's kind of a little bit of an art to do. And people space them out all differently. Some people like them to touch. I don't like them to make all together and make one solid tray. Mine will have a little space in between them once they rise and we bake them. Okay, now that we have formed them and we let them sit for a while and then they rose a little bit, now we'll open them up and get ready to fill the kolaches. Everyone has their own method. I use my thumbs and I kind of push in the middle and pull outward, and you kind of make like an open donut, but you don't want to take all the, you want to leave dough at the bottom, you know, and then you kind of stretch them open a little bit. And it's elasticy dough, so it's going to spring back a little bit. If you need to, here's a little bit of flour. If you need to dab your fingers in a little flour, because sometimes it will be a little sticky, so you don't want to do it too much. Have mixed. This is apricot, and we use dry apricots and cook them down and then run them through a food processor to get them to consistency. We also have poppy seed filling today, which I'll show you all how we can do those, and then we have cherry filling. And so you just take a spoon and you spoon some into the middle, and it's okay to kind of use your finger. You don't want to get them everywhere, and of course we have gloves on, and so kind of like so.
Is that enough? I'm not gonna
Yeah. You know, you don't want to overdo it because it will come out when it bakes, and so then you'll have it burning or making a mess on the sides of them. But you don't want too little neither, because the filling is the best part of the whole thing. And you can mix the flavors on the tray. It's okay. And if you don't want to make your own fillings, you can buy canned. third time, and they're ready to go in the oven. So as you can see, they're nice puffy and they're full, and they'll rise just a little bit more when we place them in the oven. And I have the oven set at about, depends how your oven bakes, but this is convection, so I'm doing it at 300, but at home probably about 350. And you can put them on the racks in there. And they're only going to bake about 8 to 10 minutes. It won't bake as long. You have to watch them. Sometimes as they start browning more from one side, just turn the tray around. So I'll put some in that one, and some in this one. But the other trays need just a little bit. And as you can see, they're nice and tan, but not overly. So we'll leave these other ones just a couple more minutes. And while those are still in there, we will go ahead and we'll brush them with a little bit of canned or condensed milk, just to keep them nice and moist. And just the edges of them you want to brush. And as you can see, when I told you earlier about putting the sugar and flour mixture on top, it gave them a nice little bit of a crispy crust, which when you eat them, makes them very nice. Back on the rack and let them cool. Now that the kolaches are baked and they're cool, would y'all like to try one of the kolaches we made today?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Help yourself. We have the apricot, cream cheese, cherry, and popcorn.
So I'm going to try a poppy seed one.
I'm going to do the cream cheese.
And I have the cherry. Ooh, it's delicious.
You can't ever beat when they're fresh, although they're like the freshest of fresh, right? Because they're what, about 45 minutes old maybe?
Mm-hmm.
The bread is moist and sweet.
Yeah, the poppy seed filling it's really, really good. And it's got a nice sprinkle of glaze on the top, so it's really sweet.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for having us out here today.
Well, thank you, Brandy, and thanks for coming out, and hopefully y'all enjoyed coming out and learning about making kolaches today.
It was great, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us today on our Encore Excursion, and we can't wait to see you at our next exciting destination.
Thank you.